Over there, 5-1. Oh, we can't hear you. You muted. You muted.
He muted because
Yeah, he muted 'cause
I'm freezing.
and the
but-
heat guy is there,
Yes.
and the dogs are tripping.
Oh my gosh. You would think that the guy was trying to break into the house. And it's the same guy that comes to service the heating and air conditioning. And he's super friendly to the dogs, but they're just like, we haven't seen you in like 3 months. We don't remember you. We're going to kill you.
We don't remember you. We're going to kill you. Exactly. That's adorable. Go save the dude from those savages. Good morning, Jim Runge. Welcome back. We missed you terribly.
Welcome back,
Good to be
Jim
back.
Runge, the man,
Hi.
the legend who is back with us today.
Hi, Nikki.
Yay.
Morning.
You've noticed we have a full class today.
Yeah, it's good to see everyone
all
back.
here. We are all back.
Know.
Hey, Laura Vilches is with us today. Hi, LV.
Nice.
Woohoo.
To get things kicked off, looks like we got everyone here. Welcome back to TM 101. For all our regular students that have been with us from the beginning, everyone who's joined us for the first time today, if you've noticed over the last month, everyone's kind of taking new little directions, so we've kind of been broken up a bit, but we are all back today to discuss Travel 2.0 and take a deeper dive on it. We're here at episode number 57.
Wow.
If you have not changed your chat settings, please make sure to change it to all panelists and attendees. If you have any specific questions, we'll do our best to address them all. And there's a Q&A tab. So if you really have something specific you want to address to us, throw it in the Q&A tab. It helps us. Like always, I'll pass it over to Henry, who, happy birthday, Henry. Stoked that you're back with us, as
Thank
is
you.
everybody. And we'll get this kicked off, episode number 57. So let's do this thing.
Yeah, it's really great to be back and great to be home. For 2 months, I was on a 3,000-mile family road trip up and down the West Coast. And in between that, I was flying back and forth to Delaware. So I got to tell you, it was really good for my soul to remember how much I love to travel. I love airports and planes, and I remembered that this was the business I was in, travel management for the entertainment industry. So when it came time to talk about Travel 2.0, I was thinking about 3 main points that makes this conversation different from the 101. Number 1 is the scale at which we're managing it. It's simple to understand that bigger tours equal bigger, more people, more rooms, more flights, etc. Number 2 would be the way at which the level in which we customize to the artist's preference, and as I like to put it, the way we create the rockstar experience for the artist with style and efficiency. Number 3 is the cost to have number 1 and 2 and to manage large groups efficiently. The budget, of course, for travel increases significantly and is always within the top 3 line items. So to be a great tour manager at a higher level, you have to have mastered the fundamentals we covered in Travel 101, but you also need to have a working relationship with trusted companies and people that specialize in the world of entertainment, luxury travel, and VIP concierge services to help you get what you need at a moment's notice, if need be, so you look like a pro and the client is impressed. So we couldn't think of anyone better to represent customized luxury travel for high-profile artists than these 2 women. Our guests today are 2 absolute legends in the touring and travel industry, Ms. Tina Waters, Managing Director of the Tour Company, and Nikki Goldstein, Executive Director of Midway Car Rental and Midway Auto Group. Applause.
Favorites.
Yeah. So let's get started. Thank you for being here. Tina, you're up first. You've had an amazing journey from growing up near Washington, D.C. To starting the tour company in Glasgow, Scotland. So please tell us your story and how you became a travel agent.
Let's see. I grew up in Arlington, Virginia. My mom died when I was 14. And about that time, there was a non-alcoholic rock club that opened in Georgetown on the outskirts of DC. I persuaded my father that he should let myself and my younger sister go to this rock club on weekends. He saw that as an opportunity that if he let us go there, he could go out with his friends for a drink or two. So he knew we were safe. He had his social life picked up. And so I started doing that. And from going to this rock club, I started working behind the sandwich bar, and then working at the cash register in the record store, to eventually being in the office and seeing contracts. I met a lot of managers and agents during that time, met a lot of bands, some of whom are still my friends all these years later. And in 1972, I had been to the Puerto Rico Pop Festival with a girlfriend who lived in New York. So stopped back by New York, went to see one of the agents I knew, Johnny Podell. Johnny is a legendary agent. Alice Cooper, the Allman Brothers, Crosby, Stills and Nash, George Harrison, amongst some of his clients. I worked for Johnny off and on from 1972 to 1976. We got divorced every few months, and I would go to LA and hang out there for a while and then come back and work for Johnny on his latest project. During the time I worked for him, there was a postal strike in the States. Alice Cooper was on tour. So that was my first going on the road experience. I would be sent out at the weekends with contracts to take out on the tour, to bring back contracts, to bring back deposits. So I got to see that from a firsthand experience. One of the times when I was living in California, 1974, I was working for Pacific Presentations, who later became Avalon Attractions, and they were putting on the first California Jam in 1974. They shipped me over to ABC Television, who was sponsoring the whole thing, to be the hotel liaison for all the artists and the crew. So I did that. ABC told me to entertain lavishly, which I did. I don't think they expected me to entertain as lavishly in the bar as I actually did, but it was fun, and I enjoyed coordinating all the hotels. When I finished working from that project, I was back at Pacific Presentations for a while, and then went back to Johnny Podell. And then in 1976, the Starland Vocal Band, Bill and Taffy Danoff wrote Country Roads for John Denver, and Starland Vocal Band had a #1 hit with Afternoon Delight. They were also from the Washington, D.C. area. I used to house sit for them when they were on the road with John Denver. So they asked me to be their tour manager. So the first gig was in St. Croix for a month. Who's going to turn down St. Croix in January? So off I went to be their tour manager, but they also had a young baby. And it soon became obvious that it was not going to work touring with this young baby, going out on a John Denver tour. So I ended up being the nanny, and I would fly out on the weekends with the baby. I did that for about 9 months, and then I moved back to New York and worked for Viacom. And then in 1977, went back to LA full-time now until 1989. In 77, I opened the LA office of Tasco with a guy called Andy Truman. We also had rehearsal facilities. Jackson Brown, Dan Fogelberg, a band called Angel rehearsed there. It was probably one of the first big rehearsal facilities on a soundstage.
I had a gigantic poster of Angel on my bedroom wall. Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
Punky Meadows, yeah?
Please don't ask me one single song. I just was like, wow. Yeah, they were the coolest thing I ever saw.
And working at Tasco, it was on Beechwood Drive. And having been a huge Monkees fan when I was growing up, to be on Beechwood Drive because that's where they lived. Little did I know that's because that's where all the sound stages were. I then went and worked for TFA Electrosound in the sound side of the business. And Ricky Farr was managing the tubes, and he needed help in the management company. So I went and worked for the management company. And when I finished that job, I worked at the Sunset Marquis Hotel for a while until Jerry Stickles and Chris Lamb, GLS Productions, hired me to be their secretary, assistant in the office. Jerry and Chris at that point handled Queen, Elton John, Fleetwood Mac, and Rod Stewart, and later ABBA. Jerry was contracted to Queen. He kind of operated as the American management office. They managed themselves, but he was the liaison. So whenever Queen was working, Jerry had to be with them. But whenever Elton was working, Jerry wanted to be with him, and Chris was on the road with Rod Stewart. So they sent me out on the road on the Elton tour to kind of be their liaison. And on show days, one of them would turn up, but on days off, I was there coordinating all the limousines. We were traveling in a private plane, so that was my first private plane tour. Personally, I would rather do a bus tour any time than a private plane. I would get back to the hotel at 3 in the morning and have to be up at 6 or 7 to try and start coordinating the next day. So that was good. Jerry also decided that we should be doing our own travel. So Chris Lamb's fiance was a travel agent. So I asked her what to do. She told me basically how to book a hotel. So we were still sending out all the rooming lists ourselves anyway. So I learned how to book a hotel. Hi, it's Tina from GLS Travel. We had stationery made up saying GLS Travel. It went really well until a week before we were supposed to go into the Hyatt Regency in Milwaukee, and we found out that they hadn't completed the hotel yet, and nobody had told us. So that was one of my first scrambles of having to try and find a new hotel at a moment's notice. It was also a time where the crew was told that they could stay in better hotels if they twinned up. So if they wanted to be in a Hyatt Regency standard, they'd have to be in twins. If they wanted to be in, I can't even remember what the Quality Inn in those days, they could have single rooms. Most of them decided they wanted to step up to the nicer full service hotels.
Of course.
I was also able to go on the road with ABBA for a while, which was a great experience. I think that was 1980. When I finished working for Jerry and Chris, I then went to work for a manager for a very short period of time. And then I was in a drunken conversation with a girlfriend on the East Coast who had worked for Bill Graham, and she was now doing travel for baby bands. And she was, in our drunken conversation, decided that we would start our own company called R&R Tours. I would do everything west of the Mississippi. She would do everything east of the Mississippi. And it was, travel agents then weren't taking care of really small, low budget bands because they couldn't make any money. So Mary and I started getting a whole slew of hotels that wanted this kind of business at $55 a night. And we would then charge the bands the 10%. They were staying in great hotels at prices they could afford. So paying us the 10% was no big deal. They usually paid it to us in cash as well, which helped. After she and I finished doing that, or she continued on, but I decided I wanted to move up a bit. So I started working for Revel Travel with the legendary Greta Walsh. I then went to work for Earth Travel with Kathleen McGee. And when Earth Travel closed, I went to Heir Apparent. And I worked at Heir Apparent until 1989 when I decided I wanted to see what the business was like on the other side of the pond there was still, every country had a different currency and border crossings. And so I came over thinking that I would be here for 6 months to a year. I was the 7th employee of Travel by Appointment, which is now known as TAG. In the 6 months that I was over, someone who had just been my friend, our relationship developed into something more. And we got married in 91, and our 30-year anniversary will be in February. And we still like each other.
Hey, Dougie.
And bonus. And then in 93, I was offered the opportunity to open the Glasgow office of Trinifold Travel. My husband is Scottish, so I was commuting between London and Glasgow on the weekends. So I was really looking to put down roots, really form a home. So I took up Trinifold's offer, and in 99 bought the business and assets of Trinifold Glasgow and became the tour company. Voila.
Wow.
And that's me in a nutshell.
Not much to talk about. I lost my mind at Starland Vocal Band. I was like, wow, I'm back in the 70s. I'm a little kid. Afternoon delights on the radio, just.
Big toys.
You guys must have really liked each other if you chose to stay in Glasgow. That's for sure.
Well, do you know, it's Glasgow is very much like where I grew up in Virginia. You know, we've got seasonal changes. It would be nicer if the weather was a little bit better in the summer. Family's important. You can bitch and moan about your brother or sister, but God forbid anybody else does. And I like the pace. I like that if somebody says, let's get together for dinner, they mean it. It's not lip service.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yep.
Such a history to pull from. So we're so happy to have you for this lesson. There's a lot that you could add to it.
Yeah.
Thank
I think
you.
it's up to you next.
Yeah.
Em.
Nikki,
Yeah.
it's your turn. You're originally from Boston, so you're East Coast girl too, but you created a niche in the touring industry for a need that is very quintessentially Los Angeles. Very, very personalized rental car concierge services. So tell us the story of how you got started in the industry and how you developed what you do.
It was very simple. I moved 3,000 miles cross country because I wanted to get a divorce in a warm climate. And so I did, and I needed a job, and I knew someone here who knew somebody at Budget on Sunset. And I was fortunate enough to go to work for a company where I wound up managing an office in 3 months. But I learned from somebody at Budget on Sunset how to build a better market, how to create clients, how you deliver cars. And during the gas crisis, which I'm sure most people don't remember, they're not old enough, but we used to take care of gas for the people in the music industry. So I don't know how it happened, but I started to work with all the studios. And so I was the only car rental company at the time that was doing transportation for the studios. And when they moved me to another office, I got a call one day from Julie Andrews' assistant. And she said, hey, Julie would like a chocolate brown Mercedes convertible. Can you do it? And Budget had just started doing Mercedes. I mean, it was a new niche, certainly for car rental at all. So I went out that day and I bought one. I went downtown LA Motors, bought a chocolate brown Mercedes convertible and drove it out to Julie's in Malibu and became good friends with Julie and Blake Edwards and all of the people in that group. So I did studio stuff in it and that kind of thing. Then one day I did a band. And I started to do a band called Blood, Sweat, and Tears, which really was my first band that I worked with. And I realized, this is different. I could take care of them. I can deliver their cars and make sure they're at the hotel. I can meet them on arrival at the airport. I can do things that nobody else did. And I can build a market that I represent. And so I did. And one of the bands early on, I did find out really early on that you treat a baby band the same way you would somebody that's up in the headliners already. You make sure that they get handled. You treat them as though they're celebrities and stars, and they'll be loyal to you for a very long time. I'd like to say loyal forever, but I'm not that naive. But I got a call one day to order a car from a company called Gold Mountain Management, who I'm sure most of you don't remember. It goes back to Tina and I in the early days. But I got a call for some cars for a baby band. I mean, they were so broke. They were so broke that they couldn't afford the $23 a day for the car. They had a max of $21. And I was working on a commission basis in those days, and I had gotten decent money. And I said, you know what? I'm going to help this band out. They're going to pay 21 and I'm going to pay the other $2 a day when I even up my commissions. And so I did. And the band never knew it. You might have heard the name of this band. They were Nirvana. And so when they kind of built a better mousetrap themselves, I went along with them and stayed with them until the end. I became their person. But I worked with early days with the bands that didn't have any name, like Beastie Boys and, people like that. But then I started to get referrals from big bands and work with Rolling Stones, and I worked with Michael Jackson, and I worked with some pretty big names. And I used to say to myself, they actually know who I am. It kind of blew me away. And then, I kind of built up a real loyal following, and the following that became important to me were the tour managers and the production managers and the travel people for the entertainment industry, but mostly for music. Don't ask me why I went to music. I don't listen to any music, which, by the way, people applaud because I've never asked for tickets to a show. Yeah, it's not, although I have grandchildren now, you're all warned if shows ever come back. And I have asked for a real favor on occasion. I posted something on Facebook, which I never do. And Jim Runge answered me in 5 minutes and took care of the issue that I needed. It was for somebody else, not for me, but he took care of it immediately. But your backbone are the people that you work with, treating your vendors as though they really are a part of the tour, whether it's somebody like me who's Los Angeles based, which, by the way, has probably the biggest market in the entertainment industry and the music industry, because everybody comes through here, or treating somebody else, a travel agent, as though they really are an integral part of your tour. And you'll get it back 100-fold, just picking up the phone. So you'll find out, like, if you call me, you pick up the phone and you say, hey, we need a car delivered out to, forgive me people for saying this expression, to bumfuck in the morning, Henry. That car will get delivered as long as you have something in the fleet. You find a way to make it happen so that that person is never let down. And really, I mean, I did have a simple trip out here, and I went into the same business to start with. I don't know if any of you remember that there used to be a budget rental office on La Cienega that was really big in the music industry and the entertainment industry. And I went there for a short time, went back to managing my own office, and then I went to the company that I'm with now for 27 years. So I'm with Midway Car Rental, and I've kind of planted myself here. I'm older than dirt, and I'll probably stay here till I die. Not going to have any retirement party until my funeral, so have a good time, everybody. But here I am, and really all I can say, the most important thing I can say to anybody is tell them what you want. When they do it, make sure they feel appreciated for it, and you'll really get the most loyal vendors ever in the world. So very simple story.
Nikki and Tina, we're just so honored to have both of you. And I have to mention, just for those who haven't had the opportunity or chance to work with either of these great ladies, we love them. They are, I mean, they are beloved to us in ways that, you know, you have professional relationships with people around the world when you are traveling the world for a living and relying on these types of relationships. But Nikki and Tina are two of those people that in doing business with them, you learn and are elevated to the next level. So when they are servicing you, you almost have to up your game as a client, if you understand what I mean. You know, because they service the royalty of this business, the legends and the legacy acts of this business. And if you're doing business with them, you are being treated the same way as somebody who has been sitting with next to Rod Stewart for 40 years. So in that way, your game is elevated by knowing and doing business with Nikki Goldstein and Tina Waters, 100%. So Mama Nikki, we're so happy to have you. You really are one of those people that developed the super serving your client standard of service in general in entertainment, but also particularly as it comes to rental cars. Now, the novice might think, you know, what do I need this kind of service in rental cars for?
Oh, geez.
Are you good?
Yeah, I have a phone ringing that I can't shut off.
It's an emergency. Do you need to take it?
No, they'll wait.
It's Henry. He needs a car.
It could be me. It could be me. It could be me.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's perfect. It's perfect. This is the point, right? So, Nick, would you mind explaining some of the, you know, the reasons why we might need a concierge service for our rental car situation? And I can cite a million of my own. But, you know, there's a reason why when we go pricing that we can talk about all the other car vendors, but not all of them will offer the concierge service that Midway and Nikki are known for, which is everything when you have, look, for my personal cars, I might jump on Hotwire and hotwire myself some silly little car. But if we have things to do and in places to be, and it may or may not change, you can't order a car online. You can't call 1-800 car service. Even it's better if you're using your talented travel agents. So Nikki, please, if you would be so kind.
So, oh my,
We
I
okay?
just got timed. I just said you timed out. I'm back. So it's, yeah, I really timed out at my age. Anyway, so it's really simple. First of all, if you have a budget, if you're on a restricted budget, tell me that you're on a budget. Tell me what you need. I'll figure out how we can do the cars you need. If you're here for rehearsals and you're here for a length of time, I'll make sure that the rates are livable. When you're arriving, the car will either be delivered to the hotel or delivered to you at the airport on arrival. You don't have to bother with any of the things that you normally would have to go through. You give me your license information online beforehand. You tell me what credit card you're using. I'm a bad example. I don't even use the forms. Unless you want me to use a form, just tell me the credit card you want to use and tell me it's used for these people. Tell me who in the crew is allowed to order cars, whether it's the tour manager or the production manager, because there are instances where other cars will be ordered after the travel agent has done it. You always make sure, by the way, that you take care of the travel agent if they're on a tour, so that they make sure that they trust you. They'll always trust you then. But tell me what you need. Tell me what kind of cars you need, whether it's for A party or B party or C party. We'll work out the budget. We'll deliver the vehicle to a hotel or a residence, or like I said, meet on arrival at the airport. And then when you call to extend, you don't have to go into an office to extend. You just tell me you're extending, or I'll contact you and I'll say, hey, you were due back on the 11th. Do you need to extend? Oh yeah, forgot to extend. You don't have to do any of the things that I think are normal for car rental companies. I'm not sure what normal is, because I tell people all the time, it's not brain surgery. You make a promise to do something and you do it. I remember the first time I did a big event like Coachella, Mary Jo actually held my hand. She actually did my spreadsheets because I'm roadkill on the IT highway. So she started me out with the regular spreadsheet that I would need. I filled in the blanks. She told me what we needed. We got them down to Coachella if that was the case. We worked out everything we needed. They picked up volume amount of vehicles. It all can be done. You just tell me or whoever it is that you're working with, but in my case, I know it's me. You tell me what you need. I'll find a way to do it for you. I will say yes, and then figure out how it can be done.
Amazing. So I want to point out really quick that Nikki is Southern California based. She focuses mostly on that area. Why? Because, we generally don't need a lot of rental cars on tour, but we do need them for award shows, for promo in Los Angeles, for rehearsals, for anything that we may be building. Sometimes there's recording and things change. So Nikki, first of all, can you explain a little bit about how Midway's fantastic greeter service works? Also, then we just want to talk about how, I'm going to just cite my recent experience with Nikki, where I had a car with her for a person was extending consistently over and over. Now, if I had gotten this car through a regular standard, even with my travel agent, picked it up at the airport, at the desk, with random desk agent, and just proceeded, to do a regular rental process, the number of times that I had to extend this one person's car, I'm telling you that I just returned it 3 days ago. And the amount of times that it has been extended and the timing from when it was due back to when it got extended to how it moved around, I would have, my client would have paid, we would have first of all had to go back to the airport probably 6 times with that car. Then the rate wouldn't just have automatically extended. I would have been subject to the next set of rates. So when when you're looking at booking a rental car, if you don't think this is going to be, hi, I'm going to get in this car on Wednesday and get out of it on Friday, then you need to think about the concierge services, because you want your cars dropped off. You want your people to be able to drop their car at a place where a human being is going to they're not going to get on a bus and go to 62 stops in a terminal. A human is going to get in a car and drive them to the terminal, and in the car that they came in, and drop them off. That's the kind of stuff that you want to offer your client. Right, Nikki?
So yeah, so you meet them on arrival. Now, it used to be easier because of COVID. We can't go into the terminal itself. But we text you when you land. We tell you where to walk to. You text us when you're there. We pick you up right away and put you in the car. You don't go in the rental office. We bring the paperwork out to you and off you go. When you come back, I would have to say during normal hours, because it works easier then, you drive in and you go, hi, I'm Nikki's client. Can I get to the terminal? Somebody gets in the rental car with you and drives you back to the terminal. But while you've had that car, if you've had 10 drivers on it, you don't pay anything extra for additional drivers. They get on there for free. You just let me know. And if you don't know the names of who's going to grab that car from you, you just tell me and I'll put on any authorized driver over 21. There's no extra charges from 21 to 25. And if I have to bend the rules and put somebody in the car that's 19 or 20, I can bend the rules when I have to. You trust them, I'll trust them. I'll find a way to get them in the car. These are services that I don't think you can get anywhere else. I'd like to believe that I'm the only person that's doing it well, but that's probably just my ego. But I've been doing this, I shouldn't tell you, since 1971. I kind of started before most of the people we're talking to were born. And I have clients that go back to then. I still work with McCartney. I still work with Barry Manilow since he was a baby and he did Mandy. I just have clients that go back with me all these years because I've built up a relationship with them, as well as with the tour managers and production managers. I can genuinely say there's a lot of people I love, and I don't use that word easily. I don't say love you to everybody as a way of signing off. When I tell somebody I love them, I genuinely mean it. And there are many people in this industry that I truly love. When I had a problem, they all jumped to help. And I think Jim knows what that's like. It makes your heart full. It really does. You realize that you're in the right place doing the right thing. So it's easy. You don't even have to really, well, I would say for 27 years, I didn't bother getting your driver's license. Bad on me. I just got audited. But now I ask for your driver's license, but you don't have to do much. You know, I trust you. I've never been burnt, except for somebody that went bankrupt in the early 80s. But that's another story I could tell. Names shouldn't be dropped. Anyway.
I have rented, I can't count how many cars I've rented from you over the last 20 years. And so many personal cars as well. Just living here in Los Angeles, there were times where I didn't have a car, but I was here for a couple months and I needed something for myself. And the services of being dropped off at the curb, that is the most rock star shit I have ever had. It's amazing. And it is so efficient. And since I've done it myself, I know and vouch for it. And I know that I can set up that service for my artists and it's going to happen like clockwork. And then going back to the airport, same thing. It is so cool to just get dropped off. You don't have to like reload your bags or get in a bus or anything. You know, the brand and service that you've created it's become its own brand. And you know, I think you made a good point of like, you're treating every person the same, whether it was me or my artist, like we all got the same treatment. And that standard, I think, is something that I've tried to take into all of my clients. But, you know, I really love how simple it is for me. Like, you're right. It's not like I don't have to be forced to talk to random Joe on the phone to sort this out. And I have to explain a situation over and over. Like, I can just text you, and I think I can probably do it in one sentence. I can tell you everything I need and just give you the bullet points, and you just take the ball and run with it. And because you know what I'm looking for. It's just like she said, it's simple. Address, the basic information. And then, I mean, it's as simple as look, I have a car out with you right now. It's as simple as this. Hey, Nikki, you can pick up the car, the SUV today.
Okay.
He's done with it, so you can pick it up. And I
Okay.
just returned a car. That simple. And
And your charges just stopped.
yeah.
Yep.
So
Right.
Or Nikki, I need a car at Le Park.
Right. Or Nikki, listen, tell them not to drop it there. Take it to the studio at this address. Oh my God, he left. You know what I mean? Because our lives move, but we shuck and jive faster than any business on this planet. And our clients are the slipperiest, fastest moving people ever. And they want to go and they want to go now.
yeah, everything usually. I've been talking to Nikki, I think maybe every 2 to 3 weeks for this whole year. I keep hitting up Nikki for 2 different types of cars every couple of weeks. And so it's just clockwork routine, but I know that like she is on it, and usually it's to like 10, 11 p.m. at night. And I send an email and she's like, just call me, like, tell me as fast as possible, because she knows it's my artist at the other end of that text asking at 11 o'clock at night, hey, I need this at 9 a.m. And so it's like, you ain't going to get that service from, I'm sorry, insert any other rental car company here. That's impossible to do, to know that like, yeah, it's going to be at your doorstep at 9 a.m. That's, that's the level of customizing this rockstar experience we're talking about. You have to have, Nikki's just one example of people in this industry around this world that do this and specialize in these things because they know the demand is higher. We keep it simple, because it's always a fluid situation. But it's an amazing model. And I try to bring it into your own style into my world. So I think it's incredible.
I think we all feel that it's more a labor of love.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm so worried right now because so many of the people that I love, my extended music family, aren't working. And it upsets me, it worries me. And I don't see when it's going to change and when it's going to get easier for everybody. And I worry about everybody as though they're my kids. You just get that kind of relationship with people. But I kind of feel that way when somebody emails me and they said, hi, I was referred to you by so-and-so. Okay, now I'm your car mama. I'll take care of you. The nicest thing that ever happened to me was the first time somebody ever called me car mama. And it warmed my heart because that's how I feel about all of you. You become my kids. So I'm lucky enough to have several of my own, but I feel that way about all of you.
I'm glad to know you. Early on in my industry, before I was ever even renting cars, somebody was like, oh, you're a young gun tour manager. You need to know Nikki. And you need to know Tina Waters, because you're going to operate in this space. You need to know the players that actually have the networks and the knowledge and experience to make me look good. There were many times when I called both of you and I didn't know what I was doing. I was a rookie. I just knew that like, man, these guys are the professionals. They're going to take care of me. And that's what you look for as you grow up in experience. But like I said, what will set this conversation lesson apart is how we see our artists sort of customize and tweak the systems that we all that are normally operated in, and meeting those high expectations. It becomes more challenging. So pardon my French, you have to have your shit together. It gets tough, but I'm going to send it over to 5-1 next.
Thanks, Henry. And before I start on my questions with Tina, Henry and Jim, I'm quite sure that you guys remember that we would always see Nikki and Tina at TourLink year after year after year. And I think that's where we really got a strong bond with dealing with them, is from TourLink.
Yeah.
So Tina, I'm not sure I want to ask you this question because Mary Jo put it on there. So first of all, can you tell us why my nickname at the tour company is Muffin?
Well, do you know, when you're developing relationships with tour managers and production managers, you usually get a little tagline for that particular tour. And as I recall, a bunch of us were eating chocolate muffins in our office one day when you phoned
Phrasing.
And you said, what are you doing? And we said, we're eating muffins. And you volunteered to be our chocolate muffin whenever we needed you. So From then on, you have been known as Muffin.
That is amazing. See what we
From now on,
talked
514
I had one tour manager and one day he
Adorable.
called me up and it was like, what are you wearing? So that became our thing, you know, hi, what are you wearing? Well, he called one day and one of my girls picked up the phone and he didn't realize it wasn't me. And he went, what are you wearing? She was like, "Ugh."
Mary Jo, I'm going to kill you after
Now I
this
know.
call
Well, I don't want to
today.
know what my nickname is, so it's
Oh,
okay.
Muffin, get
I'm not sure.
over it.
Okay, so moving on. In our prep call yesterday, we talked about how the only difference on paper between booking hotels for baby bands and larger tours is that the budget goes up. But a lot of times, what we're calling 2.0 travel is about creating that rock star experience for the artist and how we do that. What are some of the things that you do and the tour company does?
Well, it's talking to you guys, talking to you, talking to Henry, finding out what your clients' likes and dislikes are so that we can give you offers that are specific to that client. One client might like old worldy hotels, the traditional hotels. Somebody else might like bright modern boutique hotels. Someone else might need private entrances. It's really knowing what you need from us, and then we can offer suggestions to you. If your client needs a private entrance, I'm not going to give you a hotel that doesn't have a private entrance. I'll do my research and find that out. Somebody else may need a balcony. Someone else might need to see the sky in her room, his room. But it's all about knowing what your client needs. And once we know this, then we take notes and we will know what the preferred room number is or what a preferred hotel is. We can give you suggestions. You might not have stayed in a hotel in a particular city. It might be brand new, but we've used it. We know it's suitable for entertainment, that they want entertainment, that they can deliver everything. And we might suggest it to you. Many years ago, I suggested a hotel, the Park Hyatt in Hamburg, to a client. And on his entire tour, he kept asking me, why was he going to the Park Hyatt in Hamburg? Because it was not the hotel that he traditionally went to. And I kept saying, Marty, you're going to the Park Hyatt in Hamburg because it's the best place for you. And finally, when he got to that tour, he called me up and he said, I now know why I'm at the Park Hyatt in Hamburg. It's one of my top 5 hotels in the world. So I need feedback from you in order to give you feedback, to give your artists the best experience that they can get. You might have many choices in a city, but sometimes I'll only give you one because it's the one that you need.
That Park Hyatt in Hamburg is amazing. Oh my gosh. Oh, I love that place. And to be able to just walk out the back door and all the shopping plazas and just walking down the street. Oh, I just love that place. So, Tina, what is the ideal time frame to start booking hotels for Europe?
As soon as you know your artist is going to be going to Europe, as soon as you see it on their schedule, that is the time you should start booking. I'm already working on tours for 2022 at the moment and midway through 2022. It's not just January or February. Especially if it's a large tour, you need to get your hotels locked in before that tour is announced, because once the tour is announced, you'll find that the fans will be taking up all the rooms. Depending on the size of the city, it's going to be obvious in some cities where you're staying. If you're performing in Nijmegen, there's only one hotel in Nijmegen. So if you're doing an outdoor show there, get it booked, because your chances are you're only going to get 50% of your crew in and everybody else is going to have to stay an hour away. It's fine to put a block of rooms on hold 18 months out. because most cancellations in Europe is anywhere from 30 to 60 days. So you've got plenty of time to tweak your needs. So if you think your crew might be 60 rooms, let's hold 65, because we've got plenty of time to bring it down once you really have a chance to get your head around your travel schedule. Most hotels in Europe, if they know the travel agent well, they're not going to want to even pre-authorize your credit card until much, much closer to your arrival date, say within 5 to 7 days before you get there. But it is really important, and especially for festival hotels, to get them booked early.
I also wanted to just make a point about those hotel cancellation in Europe. This is just a tip. I put in my calendar, in my iCal, I put my hotel cancellations, particularly in major markets in Europe, because they do not play, they do not care, they do not remind you, and they absolutely will hit you. You know, they're not going to be as flexible, I found, as the States. So if you have held 6 rooms for Mr. Justin Case, cancel them. And then, you know, you might have a room or 2 to play with, but you don't want to do any major shaving and miss your deadlines in Europe. And over to you, Mr. Clark.
Could I just jump in real quick? It's funny you were saying that, Tina, about arena shows and the hotels. Way back in the early days, I was touring with a band who were opening on an arena tour. So we didn't have the luxury of that. And we were playing in one of those European cities that you know, the arena's out on the outskirts. Long story short, we ended up in a hotel nearby to the arena. Artists went out and had a couple of drinks after the show. We get back to the hotel. It was one of those hotels that, and they're looking for the buzzer to be let in because the front doors are locked. Accidentally set off the fire alarm, which sends the entire hotel out onto the front parking lot, and 90% of the hotel are fans who were at the show, see the band they just saw at the show. We ended up in this horrific situation where we're like trying to blend in and not be the ones that set off the fire alarm whilst everyone is flocking to the artist to get their autograph and photos at 3 in. It was a nightmare scenario. So yeah, avoid that at all costs.
I think that's the perfect segue for how we're extending this conversation is I'll split this between Tina and Nikki, and we'll hit a couple points here. What are some of the weird quirks you have to deal with when doing hotels in Europe and large touring parties, whether it's cross-loading to seasonal, summer festivals, celebrations, regional, and primarily in Europe? But what are some weird quirks y'all have experienced?
Well, the big thing is you need to remember that Europe is old. There's a lot of cobbled streets in Europe. There are a lot of narrow streets in Europe. You're not going to find bus parking at your hotel in Europe. You might be able to pull up and drop off, but you're not going to be able to stay for any particular length of time. You're not going to be able to pull up at 4 o'clock in the morning and have your bus be there until, you know, your artist decides to get off at 9 or 10. There's very, very, very few hotels city center with parking. So if you want to stay outside of town, that's an option. You might have a little bit better parking, but you're not going to have the same quality of hotels as you are going to have in town.
Yeah, you can't pull up and idle your buses for 6 hours while everybody gets off.
No, it's against the law in most places to idle your engine. Even when you're driving your own personal car, if you're at a stoplight, that's one thing. But if you're pulling up outside someone's house and you're waiting for them to come out, you should turn off your engine, which is great in the summertime when it's not overly hot. But in the wintertime, when it's in minus figures and you're sitting in your freezing car waiting for something you just want a little bit of heat. You'll find a lot of weekends, especially in the UK, you'll have your hen parties and your stag parties, and they will take over hotels and they will be loud and they'll be noisy. And especially if you're in an atrium hotel and you've got a lot of sound bouncing about, that's a big thing. And a lot of those stag and hen parties are starting to go to Europe because it's low cost for a weekend break. So be aware of that. But then again, in saying that, a lot of times on a Sunday night in Europe, you're going to get your lowest hotel rates because they don't, their stag and hen nights have checked out. Their business people aren't checking in until the next day. So.
And everything's closed in Europe on Sundays, like everything. It's always closed on Sundays.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the point of the conversation yesterday, just to make sure you do your due diligence, especially on a 2.0 level where your second senses come in play, where there could be any type of political situation going on in Europe that some of us have encountered, that you may land and there's a strike, or it is a holiday, or it is summer season and things are all sold out. Your agents on that level definitely have that second intuition, can keep you up to speed on all those type of movements, which will save you time, energy, and headache for your tour. And I'd love to hear from Nikki. Nikki, what are some weird quirks that you've experienced in your world?
With me, it's like the volume of vans and things like that. You know, we don't charge for cancellations. You can cancel up until an hour before you're not hit. But if you don't reserve them far enough in advance, especially over certain times of year, you're not going to get them. So that's a real problem. But as far as quirks go, how about giving somebody a car and it had a green tissue in it? We had a box of tissues because they asked for tissues, but the tissues were green and they got out of the car and walked away. I guess you'd call that a quirk. But some of the things now that we're hitting are a lot of the bands are using debit cards. And I don't know, I've been told that most car rental companies won't take a debit card. And I don't care what card it is. I don't charge you until you pay off the end of the rental. You just pay an authorization on it. But that seems to be a quirk that's hitting everybody else, but not me. But most of all, it's okay, we're doing rehearsals. We need really cheap cars. So we need economy rates, but we don't want economy cars. So that's kind of a quirk that comes with everything else. Also, you know, spoiling your tour manager and your production manager because it warms your heart and you're glad to do it. But some of my quirks are having to do deliveries with they give you security information and you have to go in and deliver something behind a gate, which makes you really nervous because something could go wrong and you could get blamed. Right now, the biggest quirks are how well are my cars disinfected? So it's everything is different now because of COVID. I mean, I actually have people that have to go in and completely clean the car, deliver it with gloves and a mask. I mean, it's awful. It really is awful. But as far as I'm concerned, there really aren't any real quirks. Anything can be handled and
It's
whatever
usually like with you, it's usually like, okay, like it has to be this specific type of car or this color. We're looking for something that like probably isn't even rentable, but maybe like, you know, some crazy Corvette or some exotic car. But you know, you cover your base as well. You know, like if I've ever needed like an extended cab truck, you know, pickup truck or a Tesla, like somehow you just always have all these vehicles for me. It's amazing.
Or I need a Chrysler Town and Country with stow and go seats, and it has to be black. I'm not kidding. I've actually had that and leather seats.
And that goes far beyond what other companies provide. I used to work in car rental before I toured, and one of the key fundamentals you get taught is never guarantee make, never guarantee model, never guarantee color. You get a group, and that's what you get. You know, and that I think that extends across all the more mainstream brands. You're not going to get any guarantee of what you want. So.
That's something that I get asked a lot by somebody new that's coming over because they aren't guaranteed. And when I tell you you're going to get a black vehicle or it's going to be a Suburban or a Yukon or Escalade, that's what you're going to get. I've actually on occasion had to go out and buy something because I guaranteed it. It didn't come available and I could not disappoint the client. I was hysterical. So I got the company to go out and buy it so that I could take care of that because it's my, everything else doesn't count. It's your word that counts. It's making a promise to somebody. That's, like I said, it's not brain surgery. It's doing what you promised to do. And in my case, loving what I'm doing. So it makes me happy to be able to do it for somebody.
I think something that also is that you know your cars really well and what questions to ask. So for example, like with vans, and you and I have had this discussion before, somebody might say, I need a passenger van with the back seat out. And you explained to me there's like 3 different models that it could be, especially now with the transit vans. So you know what questions to ask, whereas other companies might just hand somebody, you know, a 15 passenger transit van, which actually the back seat doesn't come out of. You know what they mean is they need a 12 passenger, you know, so things like that. Like you're so familiar with the vehicle types that you can also direct your clients as to what they might need, and you know what artists need. So
Again, labor of love.
I think this would be a great time to pull one of our students' questions before we continue the conversation on. Jasper make sure that I'm saying this properly. Gakula, Jasper Gakula.
Mhm.
I apologize if I said that wrong.
that was right.
This is for Nikki. Hello, I would like to ask Nikki what safety processes and protocols have been developed in the last 10 to 11 months since pre-pandemic in the vehicle rental industry, and what are things we should look out for when looking for companies like Midway and other cities in the US. What are the most commonly asked questions from clients in regards to this, and what are questions we as the potential client should ask?
It's mostly about disinfecting the car, especially the places that somebody handles a lot, like the steering wheel or the shift and things like that, the door handle, and making sure if you do get a delivery that it's done by somebody wearing a mask, because you're going to be close enough in a lot of cases. I don't get signatures. It's most of the time, it's not me. I pre-deliver most of the time. I don't always see the person, but the car I know was disinfected before it left the office. And I know that the person normally wipes it around when they get there. You may not see them do it, but God help them if I find out that they didn't. It's just, COVID has changed everything. Even with something that's you would think is so far removed as car rentals, it's changed that as well. So you just have to, I have to know that I've protected my client. And believe me, I don't think surfaces are an issue. I think that people are overreacting with that, but I don't care. My clients need to know that the car that I've given them is clean and it's safe and it's full of gas. They just have to know that I took care of them, and they'll take care of being honorable with me. So I think that that's, I think the only thing that's changed is having to disinfect the cars.
Definitely safety first, and making sure that once we do start moving, that is on the forefront, so that our teams are safe and healthy, and that we are making sure we're checking all of those beforehand. As we continue on, I'd love to bring this point up. When you have multiple parties on a tour, how do you handle it? Do you do all the booking yourself, or do you have multiple agents within your company handle the different parties and split this between
If it's me,
Nikki and
yeah, if the car rental, I do A, B, C party. I just make sure that we know which party it is. So I had the case recently with the one that Adrian was working on, and we had A party and B party. Somebody else was handling A, and I was dealing with B directly. And you just make sure you keep track of whichever it is. And
You had C party too,
yeah,
A, B, and C.
you did, yes. Yeah. As a matter of fact, I asked her about a car that needed to be extended, and she said, go to A party, that's on them. So I went to them and took care of it, because occasionally there's a crossover. But normally, you just keep track of it. You just know which, and there's a budget for each one. I might have a tighter budget that's on B than is on A, even if they're getting the same kind of cars. If you tell me, you know what, we have a max per day, you just try to find a way to do it so that they can get what they need, and not be in something that's not safe, and they'll still know what they're getting. So it's really just, like I said, it's easy. If you know what you're doing and you care about what you do, you take care of your customers, especially now with their safety.
On to you, Tina. You had gone in depth about your processes and how you like to do it, your team and everything. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Well, with when a tour comes in, if it's an A, B, C party, and if it's a stadium tour, then you've got steel crews. So you'll sometimes have 3 steel teams, and you may even have an additional advanced team with equipment. Tours like that, I prefer to try and do myself because I've got the overall perspective on the tour. Sometimes we will split the artist party, maybe the AB party will be done by one agent. This crew might be done by someone else. But what I don't like splitting is having an agent do hotels and another agent do air, because I think there's too much room for error there. There'll be that one email that I won't be copied on, so I won't know that I need to change a hotel booking because someone else has left the tour and is doing a flight. So I prefer doing that myself. There are tours that do like having their individual parties handled by different agents, which works as well. It's how you like to work is how we'll adapt. But I'm a bit of a control freak, so I kind of like keeping control of everything. I'm very fortunate in that all of my agents can do both air and hotels. Some agencies these days, I know they've got somebody that just does air and somebody that just does hotels. I'm old school. I kind of like to do the full package. My office is quite small. We're a boutique office where I think there's 14, 15 of us. So we all know what the other person's doing, and everybody knows the tour managers' names and who's on what tour. So if they are out of the office because they're at lunch and Mary Jo calls up, we know what tour she's on. We know what she needs. So we can help her. Most of my girls don't tend to go on holiday when they've got a tour out. They'll see the tour all the way through. There are some instances where maybe they've had something pre-booked before the tour came in. So if they are going on holiday, there's a good handover. We're never going to leave you high and dry in that you will always know who you're going to be talking to if your agent isn't available.
And just to add this a little bit, I love that approach too, because we get sucked into this being available 24/7, and it literally kills the entire group, all at once. I like that kind of like everyone has their time, to take a breather. Y'all collectively are all working as a unit, and everyone kind of has their window where they're available, but you're always available as a team unit, which I really like.
Yeah.
That definitely take
It's and we don't have an out of hours service that like the bigger agencies. We have an email address, I need help at thetourcompany.co.uk. It goes to everybody's iPhones, Blackberries, whatever they're using. Personally, I tend to go to bed around 10 o'clock at night, but I'm up at 6 or 6:30 in the morning. Some of the other girls will go to bed later. So there'll be a small window in there, maybe 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. where somebody isn't awake. And if there really is an emergency, you'll know your agent's mobile number. So I expect you to pick up the phone and call us and say help. But I also know, and I've tried to instill in the girls that as tour managers, when your artist is on stage, you've got a little 2-hour window there to do some work. So you might be firing out emails to us at between 8 and 10 p.m. and you're not actually expecting us to reply that night. It's so that we have this information so that when we start work the next morning and you're still on the tour bus going to the next city, we can be doing what you need to have done. So although I love instant gratification, people do need lives as well. And we are very, very fortunate. And maybe because of the way we work and because we do get things completed quickly, and we will always give contact numbers of duty managers, etc. We don't get a lot of out of hours I need helps unless it's somebody really, really needs help.
Yeah, that's something it's something that sometimes throws me off actually if I am firing off those emails at night. It's either during the show or sometimes when I'm on the bus and it's really
Yeah.
crazy hour. And when somebody gets back to me, it actually sometimes kind of throws me because I'm like, I don't expect you to answer me till the morning. I am just trying to get ahead of the game, you know. And then I'm like,
Yeah, I
oh
always
shoot,
tell
now
my
I have to
travel agents,
engage.
I keep weird hours. I always
Yeah.
tell my travel agents, I keep
Yeah.
weird hours. I don't expect you to keep
Yeah.
the hours. If I need you to respond, I will let you know
Yeah.
I need you to respond.
Yeah.
But
Well,
I don't expect,
You'll
just because
know.
you get
Just
something at
if
4 a.m. doesn't mean I expect you to answer it. It's just when I'm working.
Yes.
if I
Yeah.
if I need you to answer something, in my subject line, it will say, read me now. You know, it's
Yeah, I'm one with urgent, although I try not to use urgent so much anymore because I find that I think it's becoming overused, but I'll do
Yeah.
something in caps, you know, I'll be like, read, you know, or like,
Well, exactly. And then, you know, you need some instant gratification.
yeah. So something, Tina, that you offer that generally US travel agencies generally don't offer, and many European travel agencies will offer this, is that if large tours want invoices to run through you, you can pay the hotel invoice and then invoice the tour. So there's just one vendor invoicing the tour. They can put a deposit with you against it. Things like that. What other types of financial logistics do you assist larger tours with like that?
Well, we're a non-credit agency, and which was something when I first moved over here 31 years ago, was the biggest thing to get my head around. Was somebody said to me, can you make this hotel reservation and tell them to bill it back? And I was like, bill it back? You know, I come from the American school. You need the credit card, you know, you pay as you go. So some tours will want to lodge money with us so that we do pay the bills on their behalf. I, in those instances, hope that somebody on the tour would at least check the bill and sign it off. Because if I'm then sending an invoice and somebody's going, well, that's not quite right. It's like, well, I don't know why you didn't have that extra room or why you said to bill that porterage charge when it's not really there. So I do want people to sign off on things and take some responsibility. But we are more than happy to help however we can. There are tours that like to pay deposits in advance so that they can, especially bigger tours, so that they're controlling their cash flow a little bit better. So anything that we can do to help, really, you know, it's when you're talking, say, Spain or Portugal, it helps you with your taxes for us to receive the money and then use for future flights for you or future hotel accommodation for you.
Yep. And also when you're at, like we talked about yesterday, when you're at 2.0 level, this also means when you make changes to your travel, that can mean exponentially larger changes to the budget, you know?
Yeah.
And so how do you work with TMs and tour accountants at that level to help mitigate and manage that? You know, what do you work hand in hand with them on?
Hand in hand, I've got, when I'm sending you your first initial hotel stuff, it will always tell you what the rate is. You'll be able to almost at a glance see what your budget is, what you're averaging out at. Flights and if I see something going way over budget, I will offer an alternative way if I think it would work for the tour. But it's just keeping that information flow going. I just had a group who did rehearsals for a month in the UK. They were supposed to start touring in November. COVID put pay to that. They're supposed to start touring again in the autumn. And as I was making changes with the production coordinator, every time I made a change, I made sure that the tour accountant had a copy of the most updated rooming list with what the changes were so that he could then update his figures.
Yeah. That early check-in or that booking the extra day here and there can really start adding up you know?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I think, Doug, are you going to pick up from here?
Why not? Yeah. We mostly, I was actually doing a bit of research there for what I was about to ask you. We mostly talked about hotels, Tina, but flying in Europe brings in some other challenges. And something that we didn't mention yesterday that just struck me is when you are a North American tour party, Europe might be the first time you're flying on partner airlines. So let's say your status is with United, you might have to fly an affiliated Star Alliance airline. And what that brings up is a whole, like, does your what you need to know is where that puts you on the Star Alliance status board. You might be platinum with United, which might give you a certain set of perks, including baggage and certain access to economy plus or whatever. But maybe if you take a Lufthansa flight or SAS, I think is Star Alliance,
Yeah.
you might not get the same perks, and that might affect your budget if you're checking a lot of baggage. If you're used to your 2 or 3 free bags, you might only get one. So can you tell us about some of the quirks and things to know, especially if, going into a different territory for the first time, what especially in Europe, let's say if you're coming over from the US for the first time?
Well, most of the flights that we deal with for large groups in Europe, most of the tours that we do are bus tours. Your A party might be on a private plane, but because it's a bus tour, there might be 1,000-mile drive in there that you're going to fly and the tour is going to pay for. When we are booking the flights, a lot of times group bookings, you have to do a group booking for anything over 10 people. Otherwise, the airlines class it as system abuse. Unfortunately, in doing a lot of those group flights, they're not eligible for frequent flyer miles because the cost of the ticket is so low. Certainly, if you're traveling business class or something like that, then yes, if you're not in a group of 10, you'll get your frequent flyer miles, you'll get your perks. Media baggage over here isn't as big as it is over there. American Airlines will do it over here. British Airways will let you buy extra bags at a fairly reasonable cost. Some of the other carriers, though, the excess baggage is just phenomenal. If you're doing a tour over here with excess baggage, because maybe you're flying a lot because you're doing festivals, as soon as we can know about this excess baggage, and I don't mean, hi, Tina, we've got 10 pieces of excess baggage. I need to know your weight. I need to know your dimensions. The earlier I can book that, the better. Some of the flights you're going to be on are regional flights. It might be in a jet, but it's going to be in a small jet. And we need to make sure that we clear this baggage well in advance. And I'm not talking 2 days in advance or 3 days in advance. So the more time you can give me. With group flights over here, it varies. Every airline has their own specific way of booking. British Airways, Lufthansa, Air Portugal, SAS will allow you to, when you're making a group booking, they'll give you various deadlines. And at one point, you are committing to the space. And that might be a 25% commitment, or some British Airways, I think, is 10% of what the flight cost is. But then, and that's to hold the space for you. And then as you get a little further on, then you've got a full commitment. At this point, no money's changing hands. You're just committing to this. Now, if you just decide within this commitment period that I've given you that you're not going to take that flight, there's still money that's going to be due the airlines. I don't collect that from you in advance. I expect you to be honorable and know that I've given you all this information in advance as to what this is. And then the time that the money changes hands is when we ticket. And that's usually anywhere from 5 to 14 days in advance. Some airlines might want ticket numbers a little bit sooner, but they're pretty flexible with names. So even if it's 3-4 months out, the names might not be due until 2 weeks before you're actually going to fly. And by that point, you should know who's on tour with you.
Yeah. Yeah. And have your gear list and sizes. Because that's a real thing, folks. That's if you're doing fly dates on like festivals, you know that you're already only carrying the the minimal amount of gear it's going to take to do that show. So if some reason your gear doesn't get on that flight because it's a small regional plane, man, like you are at risk of losing your gear and it's chasing you for the rest of the tour. That show's not going to happen unless you borrow some gear somewhere else, and you're getting fired like because of that, because you didn't book some baggage space. So it's a real thing.
Yeah, and there are in the US there are some budget airlines that we use from time to time, like Southwest, and they have their place. But can you tell us why we don't use Ryanair in Europe?
Oh, because you pay for everything.
And also, Tina, can you touch on with that, would you roll into that discount airlines in Europe discussion, getting in and out of Ireland? Because it's an island.
Ireland is an island, and the amount of people that have asked me if they can take a train from the UK to Ireland, no. There's a lot of water in between. The only ways in and out of Ireland at the moment are Aer Lingus. British Airways has minimal flights, but they partner with Aer Lingus. So even if it's got a BA flight number, it might be an Aer Lingus plane. And Ryanair, Flybe went bust, although they're saying that they may be coming back. But because Ireland isn't that far from the UK, because it's an island, a lot of these planes are going to be turboprops. And that is a problem for a lot of artists that don't want to get on a plane with propellers.
So it's important to really understand that you're not taking the bus to Ireland. Okay? So you have to fly. It's important to understand the limitations of commercial air travel in and out of Ireland, particularly as it relates to a party. Ladies and gentlemen, I have had a world-renowned pop star on Ryanair in the middle of the plane. We did it. It was a calculated move that we decided to make, but we did it. It happened. So we did that as a calculated move. It's important for people who may not understand that Ireland is an island unto itself and that your buses aren't going there and neither is a train. You've got very limited air travel options. You've got to know what they are. Put this little marker in your soon-to-be your European travel book. It's a hassle.
But your buses can go there, but just on a ferry. And
right, just on a ferry. Right,
yeah.
right.
And the reason that they don't, in inverted commas, is because once they get there on the ferry, especially if you're on a one-day turnaround, there is basically none of the venues in Dublin have parking anyway. So you go from having woken up at 3 a.m. to get off your bus for the crossing into a crossload situation if you're on a smaller tour, or it's basically a night and day of no sleep followed by another night of no sleep followed by a show. So it really sucks.
And a lot of times,
you have to get off your bus to do the ferry. You can't stay sleeping on the bus while you're doing this crossing.
Right, right. And a lot of times Ireland might be routed first so that you can go and do that Irish fabulous play in Dublin, and then you pick up your buses later on, maybe in the UK or France. After you've done a train in and out of France and London, then you can get your buses and get on the ground and get moving. But yeah, Tina, talk about, just for a second, I want to make sure that we talk about the fact that those budget airlines in Europe also charge for your carry-ons by weight. Anything over your purse, your backpack, they're going to make you weigh that carry-on. So I just want to have a moment on that before we move on real quick.
Yes, I think Aer Lingus's carry-on, which is free, but it's only 7 kilos on the on the regional flights. That's nothing. Most of your bags are probably, most of you guys, when you're on tour, your work bag is 20 kilos that we're trying to stick in the overhead bin. And you will be paying for everything. They're very, very strict on the oversized bags. They will measure your bag as you're getting on the plane, and they may take your bag from you and put it on the plane themselves, like similar to what they do in the States. But especially Aer Lingus, the overhead bins aren't big enough for what you've got, and you're not going to be able to stick it under the seat in front of you. So,
and your artist is going to be looking
really
at
be
you like,
mindful of.
what the F, dude? Like, your artist is, and everyone's going to be like, seriously, bro, why are we on this flight? Like,
yeah,
so fired.
And also European standard carry-ons are much smaller than the ones that are allowed in America. So when people come over with their American size carry-ons and all of a sudden can't fit them in anything.
Right, because I'm carrying my computer and my screen and my printer and that's my
like
rolling
one carry-on.
And they get it measured and they're like, nope, gate check.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just one other thing to remember is that, you know, it sounds self-evident, but you are crossing international borders flying in Europe, and that will be further complicated by Brexit, which we don't fully understand yet, so we're not really going to get into. But the United Kingdom, as we've mentioned before, is exiting the European Union, unfortunately, and that is going to cause potential chaos. It's a good thing that touring is off right now while Brexit happens, because it's going to give the borders some time to adjust. And there's every chance that when this happens at the start of next year, there's going to be some border chaos going in and out of the UK, which is problematic because the UK acts as a hub for touring coming from North America in and out of Europe for obvious reasons. But, you know, carnets are difficult at the airport. Oftentimes you have to go hunting around for where the carnet is processed. We've touched on that before, but it bears repeating. If you're flying with gear, you need to have your carnet stamped out and in. But that only applies in Europe to the countries that are not a part of the EU. So United Kingdom, Switzerland, Norway, unless I'm missing anyone else in that sort of European bloc. Of the other countries, you can fly and travel from one to another without having the carnet stamped.
Private planes is another one we should talk about, because the airports that private planes go in and out of don't stay open 24 hours. There's a large number of them that definitely don't. You can't fly out of Switzerland at night.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
I've been starting to see flying out of Holland a little bit more now, but that used to be 10 o'clock. So there are certain countries where after a certain time, I know where you want to go, but you can't get there from here, because from one country to the other, one of the countries, the airport might not be operating.
Yeah, I've done a handful of those kind of tours where it was all jet based, and a lot of the times you've flown into small airports in the middle of nowhere, and that airport is just not open past 10 p.m. And you, as a headliner, you can't go into it thinking like, I'm just going to land, go do the show, get back on the jet and fly back to London tonight or back to Berlin, because it's just not open. And you know, a lot of the times there's ways to talk with, you know, work with your jet rep, because we've definitely made sure that, you know, look, we'll be there at 11:30 on the dot. Can you stay open an extra hour? We have definitely worked with FBOs and immigration reps to stay longer. You can have as many conversations as you need to get these people to stay open. And that's part of, you know, the 2.0 travel is figuring out all those road bumps and just making it possible, you know?
Right. And adding to Henry's point there for a moment, that when you're doing jet travel in Europe, remember that you're not just traveling to state, you're traveling country to country as if you were traveling state to state in the US. So you've got to have immigration officials to check you on the way in and on the way out, which is at an FBO, which is a different situation than hopping around or hubbing in the US. So there are immigration concerns to consider privately as well, which happens on a concierge basis at the FBO. However, it presents another set of logistical concerns.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. But you have to, it comes down to the minutes, and it's fascinating how many times we somehow pull it off, but you have to be ready to know that if you tell your artist that, like, look, you can make this flight back if you leave right from the stage to the airport right away, you can make it. I've set it up. But then if they do a left turn and are like, oh, we're going to stay and party in the dressing room an extra 30 minutes and you've missed your window, if you could anticipate that your artist is going to be like that, or you hit that situation, then have a hotel, tell Tina, yo, this might happen. It's a really tight window. We may not get off the ground. So we need to have a just in case hotel on standby. And sometimes, yeah, you just have it, and I paid for it, even if we didn't use it, because the situation was so tight that we took that risk and took on that cost. But in the end, I'm going to do everything I can to get them wheels up. And but it takes a lot of coordination with especially with the international stuff. You can have, for the most part, I've been able to always have an immigration rep there. Most major FBOs can get somebody there. Early in the morning, middle of the night. It just has to be done in advance. So this is where it goes back to the relationships we have with these people, and explaining to them that, like, I'm going to be late, or we're trying to do a late night wheels up. That's where you bring your real value as a tour manager. Where are we? What's next? Mentor?
Sometimes shows in Europe, sorry, Jim, just to interrupt you, there are, North America is pretty well populated and pretty similar in terms of demographic, and for the most part, there are some shows in Europe that happen in places that are pretty out there, like on top of Alps, on
a farm in the middle of a field in Holland, somewhere away from any city that.
Yeah, I did a festival on a remote island in the west coast of Scotland called Tiree, which has one airport that they open and close for every incoming and outgoing flight. So, if you miss your flight, you're going to be on Tiree for a couple of days.
So one day you're coordinating the crew of X amount of, 24 crew or whatever, driving the 3 hours to get out to that festival, while you're coordinating an artist landing within 15 minutes of that festival and trying to get both of them out that night. It's crazy logistics, and you're working round the clock, managing different teams and travel. So, a point that I made earlier was, like, all of this elevated, you as one tour manager, there's no way you can be in all of those places to manage it at the same time. This is why you depend heavily on your production assistants and coordinators and your travel agents or your security. By this point in 2.0, your team has grown to help you be in 2-3 places at once, or you've got eyes and ears in other places. You've got somebody at the hotel that's already done the check-in. You're staying 2 steps ahead of the travel you've already set up. But then as it's the rockstar experience, I like to, do it with style and with a certain poise and candor and bedside manner that is just consistent with every artist and team. And so it becomes an art form, as I think I always say about everything we do here. It's quite an art form to manage all of that travel and to do it efficiently, but then do it in style and make yourself and your artists look good when they do it. I digress. Go ahead.
Hey, Tina and Nikki, this is a question for both of you. We'll go to Nikki first. We often talk about how important mentoring is in this career choice we have. Did you have any mentors coming up, and who were they and what did they teach you, Nikki?
Actually, my mentor was somebody who had some very bad habits as well, but it was Arnie Graham on Budget, from Budget on Sunset. He had some really bad habits. I have to admit, now that he's passed away, I can say it. When I first left him, I didn't understand why some of my business stayed with him. And I found out afterwards it's because you could order what you wanted to smoke or take internally in your glove box. And I didn't get that right away. So until somebody actually said to me, hey, dummy, we're ordering our drugs as well. And I went, oh, now that makes sense. But he really did teach me how to do what I do, because I saw an example of it. He also taught me what I shouldn't do.
Right.
And so really, he was my one mentor. It didn't take much because I'm not doing a whole lot. I'm not doing as much as a travel agent or anything else. It's real simple. When you get the idea of what you're doing and how you're helping people, it's, it doesn't take a whole lot. There were a couple people I really learned what not to do from. More than anything else, I realized that that wasn't the person I wanted to be. So I don't know if you would call that a mentor, but they certainly taught me. So really, that was, in my case, it's not a whole lot. Tina had a whole lot more mentors.
Well, Johnny Podell taught me not to take drugs. My mother told me not to take drugs, but Johnny Podell taught me not to do them because I saw this absolutely brilliant man throw his career down the toilet. And he'll be the first to admit this. Thankfully, he's been clean for a long, long, long time. But watching him made me decide never to do drugs, and I haven't. And I, for my age group, that's probably I'm probably one of the only ones that can say that I didn't do drugs. Paula Doherty taught me how to do travel, taught me what to say to hotels when I was trying to book them, taught me how to ask for commission. Jerry Stickles, I just learned so much from the time in his presence and working for him from 78 to about 81. And there are, as Nikki said, a lot of people that taught me how not to do things. I would see the way that they would treat their vendors. And I didn't want to do business like that. I want to have a good reputation in this industry. And I think that I do have a good reputation with all of my hotel reps, all of my airline reps. I try to be fair. I want to do the best I can for everybody.
And we love you for that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I would just that, like, your experience and that network and relationships you had has just come back and helped me with all of my clients. And so, like, how much I really depend on both of you, and the time and relationships that you've built means everything to my career. Because I wouldn't know who to call. Like, if I had to imagine having to like know everything that you know about all the places and people, it's unreal. So thank you guys so much. This has been an amazing class. I hope all of our students and everyone that's watching has enjoyed this and Travel 2.0.
Tina,
Thank
stay
you for having
safe.
me.
Thank
Stay
you.
safe. Stay safe. We hope to see you again soon. Everyone out there, have a good week. Everyone stay safe. Love you, Nikki Goldstein. Love you, Tina Waters. Love to my colleagues and all of our participants who join us each week, stopping in, spending some time with us, sharing ideas and whatnot.
Next week is episode number 58, Day of Show. We'll be joined by some wonderful guest panelists, which we'll announce later this week. If you have yet to tap into our resources, go back to episode number 7. We have some great travel resources there, or just dive into our templates altogether. But again, every Monday we'll be back, keeping 2.0 rolling, and it's episode number 58, Day of Show. I think we made it.
Well done, everybody.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tina,
Everybody,
Nikki.
please be careful.
Waving it out.
Stay safe.
Bye, everyone.